Good afternoon, Fabiano. Glad for joining. Shout out to Brazil. Once again, thanks for joining me. Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. Shout out to Gaming Alive. Thanks for joining me. Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. How are you doing? Josie Tequila. Yep. Okay, appreciate you. Regine, always supporting. Appreciate you. You know how we do it. Put any questions in the chat, cybersecurity or technology. So Tuesday evening, we talked a little bit about AWS and their snafu. Part of that came out is their US East 1 region went down. So we're going to talk about, it seemed like you still could have DR'd to another region. So now we're going to talk about the different DR strategies you can use, especially from an AWS perspective. The Pain, thanks for joining me. I'm just ding dong. I'm just in dongs in cybersecurity. You throwing me off a little bit. You kind of. Why am I just in cybersecurity? Pain kind of smooth that out for me a little bit. Oh, Simply Cyber. Just in Simply Cyber. Yep. I'm supposed to be doing a course for Simply Cyber. I am super late finishing that. So that's kind of going to be my main focus coming up. Appreciate you, Jeffrey Johnson. So once again, let's get started. Once again, we're going to talk about DR. Once again, since AWS went down, one of their regions went down, it seemed like looking through their ticketing of what happened, it seemed like you should have been able to fail over to another region. So once again, we're going to talk about DR. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Shout out to Simply Cyber. I need to get back over there a little more. I've been just kind of tired and weary. Shout out to Equalizer. Good afternoon. Eastern Standard Time, most definitely. Let's get rolling. Let's see. Once again, we're going to talk about DR. I don't think I changed mine. Most people know I'm a NIST 800-53 guy. These are the 20 families that roll up to the NIST 800-53. I've done federal work forever. Lately, I've been working for companies that do federal work. So that's kind of where my lane is, kind of where I try to, my niche, kind of where I try to stay at. This new Restream is got me struggling a little bit. So I've been using this a lot. $2.41 trillion. That was 2022 due to cyber failures, data breaches, operational failures, legacy systems, and unsuccessful development projects. And part of that is your data breaches and operational failures. You can't roll over to another region, right? Depending on what your SLAs is with your customers, sometimes you can have very little downtime where you have to pay a fine or reimburse money. And most times you get credits. Shout out to AWS. They were giving a lot of credits last week, right? Because they went down. Salute to PBO in the chat, ready to lunch. And I appreciate that, Larry. Definitely one of my PM resources. PBO don't like project manager in the third person. Kind of hurting those cats get on my nerves at a federal level. I'm probably one of the hard-headed cats, though, too. So shout out to me. Shout out to me. That was the AWS down. Put it all in red. AWS was struggling last week. But for me, I think just the cost of doing business, when you're at 33% of the cloud networking, you're going to have issues. That's high scale. I think they were down total of 15 or 12 hours. Once again, we're going to talk about the last slide, which You can do multi-cloud. If AWS isn't up, you can fail over to Azure or Google. You can have your stuff spent up over there, have your database replicating in a whole nother cloud, and so you will never be down. That's going to cost you some money though, right? So you got to figure out, is that small, minute downtime you get, it's going to worth all that extra infrastructure training? Because you need AWS skills and you need Azure skills. Those are different skills. Well, I take that back. It's the same skills, but you got VMs compared to EC2. So the syntax and the technology is definitely a little different. Shout out to my man, Harish Kumar, for joining us. Kumar. My father, if I'm butchering your name, no disrespect. Let's get going once again. So once again, from that AWS region down, you should have been able to fell over to another region. So I'm kind of curious why billion-dollar companies didn't have a DR plan. Or because once again, federal, people know I do a lot of federal work, specifically for the IRS. You have to do a DR exercise, DR test annually to make sure you can do that. So here's one of the things inside NIST 800-53. NIST disaster recovery plans are strategic blueprints for restoring IT systems and functions after a disruptive event. Focus on restoring systems to their pre-disaster state. NIST guidance in NIST 834 outlines frameworks for contingency planning. That includes identifying critical systems, performing impact analysis, developing response strategies, implementing recovery procedures. The plan is part of a larger continuity strategy that typically involves 3 phases: activation and notification, recovery, and reconstitution. And out of that, you should have an annual test exercise, and a disaster recovery plan. Right? Shout out. Me and Larry talked about that. When you're in the fast space, you need a lot of paperwork. You need a lot of documentation. So part of that documentation is, what is your disaster recovery plan? We probably talk a little bit about that at the end and what that should look like. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. Henry, Sean, I appreciate you. I've been in the game a long time, though. I appreciate you. I've been in the game as older than most people I talk to. I've been in IT for 35 years. I've been in cybersecurity probably for 15, and I've probably been in GRC for 10, right? In different levels. I got a bachelor's of computer science degree. So I started off as a programmer for a decade before I started going into infrastructure, web admin, application administrator, little DBA work. Shout out to Oracle. That's when I made my first big time money doing Oracle DBA work. But no, I appreciate that. But once again, from the AWS disruption, rolling over to the DR, and I think I got the high level AWS disruption. And where's your DR plan at? What's the RTO and RPO? All right, RTO, return to operation, recovery point. How much data in the database can you lose when you roll over to a different region, different AZ, different data center? Or if you're going to go multi-clouds, spinning over from AWS to Azure or Google, or I love Oracle OCI. So there's a lot of private cloud vendors out there. AWS is not the only one, my favorite, but there's a lot of other cloud vendors out there. This is the IR3 from NIST, incident response testing. It's affected to incident response capabilities for system analysts using tests. Tabletop, just paperwork and going through exercise. The control enhancements of that, coordinated with related plans. Coordinate incident response testing with organizational elements responsible for related supplemental plans. Here's some of the supplemental plans we're talking about. Business continuity plans, contingency plans, disaster recovery, continuity of operation, crisis communication plan. If something hits your data center, who are you going to talk to? Do you have a marketing person? Is the CISO going to talk about it? Is the CEO going to talk about it? Depending on your plan, depending on the event, we talked about that. Long story short, most people know I used to be a consultant for the state of Indiana. If we lost all the taxpayer, true story, I'm in a big meeting, talked to the, they call it commissioner or Department of Revenue. I said, big boss, when we lose all our data, are you going to go in front of the meeting? He goes, that is incorrect. the governor would speak on that. I'm like, the governor goes, if we lose everybody tax information, he might not get elected. He has his own media set up to do that. I go, oh wow, that's bigger than what I was thinking, right? So depending on how large your organization, you need to get that crisis communication planning together. PBO was in a meeting, incorrect answers. I'm like, oh, we got a whole media team over there. They're like, oh no, that's too big. We're not doing that, right? We gonna get that to the governor. Agency should coordinate with agency IT personnel when applicable, data center and vendor personnel, and protect confidentiality of FTI. FTI really is federal tax information. That's one of the federal agencies I usually do work for, or they're coming out of us on site. So a lot of times you see FTI, that's because I do a ton of work for the IRS. Or once again, we get federal information from the IRS, which is federal tax information. So they give us federal requirements from a cybersecurity perspective, a GRC perspective. One of my main jobs is to make sure we pass that audit, right? So that's kind of why you see a lot of times FTI in there. But really, that's for any really federal organization. Most of it's modern information. It's not life or death. I like the IRS because they give you specific things they want you to do. So that's why I quote them a lot. Let's see what my man Larry, a lot of documentation, a lot of layers of communication, a lot of built-in redundancies in our DR process. Maybe too much, never too much, Larry. Never too much redundancy. That's quite experience. You got people. I'm at a place right now. I'm a SOC analyst trying. Oh, you're right. To me, if you're a SOC analyst, you're really doing GRC. They just don't call it GRC. One things I do a lot of times is give information to our accounting firm that's doing our SOC 1 and SOC 2, or I'm giving information interacting with the SOC people, right? They want policies, procedures, onboarding, offboarding. If we fired somebody, if we had an incident with malware or software, because they want to look at all the policies and procedures, working with HR to get them that information before. So I think you're right there, really. You just kind of, once again, so you can pivot. But if you're a SOC analyst, part of GRC is giving that information to our external auditors. All right. So a lot of those external auditors was asking us SOC questions. I do a lot of NIST and FedRAMP, but a lot of that information is really the same. What's your encryption? What's your onboarding, offboarding? What's your incident response plan? So once again, if you do a SOC, you right there. I appreciate that, Larry. So once again, if you're a mid-sized company, you're not going to do all those plans. When I work for smaller companies, we probably do a disaster recovery plan, probably business continuity plan, which is a lot easier now. Meaning, in the old days, if our building went down, we had to find another building. Now, most people, you just send everybody home to work remotely. All right, then you would just lock down. Then working remotely. Most people have VPN, so you got that. We got MFA. We were talking about using thin clients to help you with the security, but once again, if I'm working for a federal contract, especially from DoD, I have to do all those plans. But if I'm working for a private company doing federal work, once again, I'd probably do business continuity, disaster recovery, then all those other plans, I'm just putting them as appendix. Right. And my business continuity basically is, if our building goes down, where we're going to put our people in there, I put our contingency plan and our crisis communication plan as appendix in there. Who gets to talk to what particular events and what level, and who's going to communicate them. Right. We call it break the glass. If it's something big, the CEO is going to talk about it, right? Because it's that big, right? If it's something standard security, the CISO probably do it, right? So if it's a little higher than the CEO or the commissioner at a state level. Yearly commission. Everything we do from NIST is 99% annual. The only thing is quarterly now, or semi-annually, is oh man, it's on the tip of my tongue, is DBAs are trying to think of the term. I call them our high value system owners, that'd be DBAs, anybody that could get production data. We have to review those quarterly. Everything else in NIST is what's up, Jim R? Everything else is annual. So we try to do our DR test annual. I used to review RFIs and RFPs for bigger company when we bid on federal work, and sometimes they want you to do a DR test twice a year, semi-annual. But 9 times out of 10, from a NIST perspective, they just want you to do annually. So what I try to get our, we have a development team where we rolling out big systems. Anytime we roll out a big systems, I would just say do a DR test down, because if we doing different subnets or upgrading our networking or upgrading our, if we're doing a custom program, while we're down getting it ready, just roll over to the DR site. We can continue to run, then we can check that. So that's when I try to do our DR test, because usually we're scheduling if we're going to do a big update or some kind, either infrastructure or programming wise. So we're going to be down anyway. So we just do a DR test then. So once we take our system down to upgrade it or whatever, it should automatically roll over to DR. So I try to do those simultaneously. Most of the times, the business owner and the tech guys sign up for that because it makes it easier for them too. Unless the DR site doesn't work. We did that one time and it didn't work, so we were scrambling. So now we try to do a major release and try to figure out what's wrong with DR. But 9 times out of 10, it works. It works good. So, and once again, most people sign up for that. So, but once again, that's the IR3. If you look at the NIST families, that's incident response IR, the 3. So that's when we do the incident response test for that particular control. Shout out to my man. Kumar, he's got the SOC 2. That's a lot of sometimes questions we get from the SOC team. What's your DR and failover capability? So once again, we got the DR plan, we got the test. So we give that to the SOC 2 people. Say, see, we doing things the right way. We are spectacular on this Friday. So once again, this was the timeline of AWS. That's why I still have that title up there. I forgot to change it. So let's talk about it. October 20th. AWS report increased error rates and latency in AWS services US East 1 region. Shortly after that, it confirmed significant error rates for requests made to their DynamoDB endpoint in US East 1. The root cause was identified as a DNS resolution issue for the DynamoDB API. Because many services, take my big head off of there. Because many services on DynamoDB and because the region is a central hub, failure cascaded to many other services and downstream customer system globally, right? So if you got DynamoDB and you were calling those endpoints in other regions around the world, those regions was erroring, right? But if your US East 1 was region and you weren't using DynamoDB, it seems like you should have had your DR plan to automatically fail over. If you see on the screen, on the left side, you see that US East 1. If that primarily goes down, it should just roll over. Route 53 is AWS's DNS service. So it does a health check. So once again, if that primary on our left looking at the screen from the US East 1 goes down, it should roll over wherever you had it set up. This is US East 1 to Cali. Right. So, but it was a lot of billion-dollar companies, aka Starbucks. They went down. So, does they have DR? Were they using DynamoDB and they didn't have that failover? So, I might dig into that a little bit more. But just reading from that, once again, you should have failed over to whatever your standby region was. I'm in the Midwest, and they have data centers, I believe, in Chicago. So that's usually where I'm working out of. But once again, you should have fail over and be able to spin up in a different region. Let's see. Oh, that could be. Shout out to Xavier. Always coming through. Specialized. Appreciate the support. That's coming up, and Henry, that's an excellent question. We got that coming up. What are the key steps to follow? We got that coming up. That is an excellent question. So we got that coming up. Then once again, I'll drop the link if anybody has any additional questions if I don't hit to them. So you see right there's a primary region and secondary region. You see right there, they're talking about a raw global database. So that level, your database is automatically replicating. And that's one of the steps Henry's asking about. You got to have your database replicating to another region. So if the primary region goes down, your data is already over there. So if we can't get to the primary region, we just point Route 53. It should automatically be able to do that. With the health tech, it automatically point to your second region. Your database is already your data is already over there because it's replicating and you should be up and running. Shout out to my man. Thanks for joining me. Let's go. So when we're going to talk about the different DR strategies and the different time it costs would you use it, right? That's a lot of time. I could get you no lost time, but that's going to cost you money, right? So, but this right here is I would consider a basic setup. All right, you got your web tier, public subnet, your private subnet, then your database. Then at the bottom is your AWS services you're using. So it could be those three or many more, but that's kind of your base setup. Now, right now, if you're a $1 billion company like Netflix and you got movies and you figuring out where people are at around the globe because you want them to get to the movie the closest part with a little latency, right? That's a different animal. We're talking about Starbucks and you getting rewards for your coffee, right? So different level of complexity. And we're going to dig a little more in it. But from a database side, once again, you see the availability zones. A lot of times you have availability zones in the same region, right? So availability zone is basically a data center. So most of your regions in AWS, you have between 3 and 6 data centers, a little more than 125 miles away. So inside that region, you can have availability. All right. So if this data center goes down because the power gets cut, once again, your data is replicated to another data center in that region. And once again, you can spin up, not miss any time. And that replica would automatically become primary. Then you can read right in there. So we're going to once again talk about different databases and their RTO and RPO for using different databases around the globe, right? We know AWS got data centers around the globe. So this is my favorite one. Pilot Light, we're talking about DR strategies. With Pilot Light approach, you replicate your data from one region to another and provision a copy of your core workload infrastructures. Resource required to support data replication, backup, databases, and object storage are always on, such as application servers are loaded with application code configurations, but are switched off and only used during testing or when disaster recovery failure is invoked. The cloud, you have the flexibility to deprovision resources that when you don't need them and provision them when you do. A best practices for switch off is not to deploy the resources, then create a configuration of capability to switch it on when needed. Unlike backup and restore approach, your core infrastructure is always available and have the option of quickly provision. I like this because once again, you can quickly provision it, but we're gonna see it on the next slide. You're not getting charged for a lot of things because you don't have it running because there's no traffic over there. Once again, we're going to talk about these level of RTO and RPOs. Pilot Light, you can spin it up within 10 minutes. Data live, services idle, provision some resources, cost is minimal. Warm standby, always running but smaller, business critical. Scale when they want it. Then multi-site active costs the most money. Back and restore, we'll talk about that at the end. I usually use that more for incident response, meaning somebody got to our database or corrupted it. So I want to have a backup in a different region, or hopefully I have a backup outside if I need it. But I think the slide coming up will be the Pilot Light. So here's the Pilot Light. So you see your main primary region on the left. So you got your front end web servers, your application servers, and your database. All the traffic's going over there. But look at your Pilot Light side. You don't have anything up and running. But the thing you do have up and running that you need the most is your database is automatically being replicated. right? So that's probably the main charge you get put over there. All right, you got your cluster slash shop. But if that primary site goes down, as soon as the traffic starts going over to your pilot light side, that auto scaling group, even though it's set to 0, once it starts getting traffic, it'll start spinning up resources, right? It usually probably takes 15 to 30 minutes to spin it up. And unless you, I was going to say Blockbuster, that don't exist anymore. That's Netflix, or you're a big company and you need that instantaneous response. All right. So for me, especially smaller companies on a budget, I usually recommend this. Because once again, the only thing you're really getting charged for is your replica of your data, right? And you can replicate really anything, right? You can, it could be MySQL, it could be Postgres, it could be the RDS. You don't specifically have to be Aurora. So there's most of their relational database services. You can set up a read replicable. So once again, when that primary site gets down, it part of your DR plan, it take your read replica and make it a primary now, because your primary is down. Create another read replica to help you with your querying capabilities to not slow down that particular system. But once again, this is the pilot. One of my favorites thing, and what I usually recommend most companies doing. We talked about the warm site. So the warm site, you see, is similar, but you do have front end and application servers already up and running. So what does that mean? That means you're going to be up probably in 5 minutes. And the other thing too is you're going to get charged. So to kind of get around this, a lot of times, if this is EC2, it could be, bigger EC2. I might make my first one I have running half the size, right? So it'll be ready to pick up data, but once it gets to a certain level, the auto scaling is going to actually spin it up to bigger Linux boxes, bigger Windows boxes. Front end could be IIS. My favorite is Apache. I'm a Linux guy. Once again, IIS for the app server. I usually do Tomcat. I used to do Java, JBoss. There's a lot of app servers that could spin up there. But once again, this is the warm. You see it at the top, warm standby. The reason it's warm, once again, we have our front end and our application servers already spin up, already ready to do work. But once again, we're getting charged for that. So PBL would recommend the pilot with none of that ready until we actually start getting information. So once again, you talk to the business unit, you talking about, and we'll talk about that again, RTO, RPO, how much data can you lose, how quickly you want to go up. And two, actually from a federal compliance, what they recommend there in that particular situation too. Once again, I usually leave that to the business owners. And this is the multi-active side, right? Where you have full regions, full AZ spun up of your full architecture, right? So if you had, I was at the state, I think we had 70 VMs running during tax season. So you have 70 in your primary region and 70 in your secondary region, because both of them active, and you're getting charged for all of that, right? So so once again, depending on money and how critical your information, right? We always talk about data classification. So what data classification do you have? It's going to determine what type of DR. Shout out to Rev 2211 for joining us. But once again, let's hit those real quick. Pilot, you see over there in your inactive, no regions running. Our warm standby, we got some stuff running, but we don't have a full setup. But once again, we got auto scaling groups. So once our traffic starts going over there, we will automatically spin up what we need. But remember, that takes time to spin up. Shout out to my man, Ty, for joining. I appreciate you, Ty. PBL about to go lay down. He tired. Once again, so, and to our active, I don't think I've really ever worked on an active. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever worked on an active, to be honest. I've never worked on it. I had to think about it. I've never worked on active. Most is active, passive, spin it up when you need it. So I've never worked on active. A lot of times too, active, there's only a couple databases in AWS to let you write on both sides of an active and sync them together. because even in ROAR, RDS, it's only gonna let you be active writing on one side. So that's interesting on that. So let's keep going. This is our standard backup. A lot of times you see at the top backup and restore. So we have our EBS and our instances, which would be Windows or Linux. We're actually making backup and snapshots of that. Then we're actually saving it into S3 AWS backup inside our backup region. So if we need to spin it up, then we have to take it, install it. If it's an EBS, spin up an EC2, get that really disinformation and hook it to that. If we got databases, then we actually have to import that into another database. At the bottom, you see RDS, making it a EBS, database snapshot. Inside that database snapshot, you have to spit up another database and import it in, right? But once again, what level of DR and what timing do you need is going to tell you which one of those you would need. A lot of times I do EBS backups on web servers and app servers, just to have configuration changes. If I need to roll back, if I need to keep track of that, right? So I will keep those snapshots there. And then from a forensic standpoint, if they want to know what you did and what your setup was in January of 2022, right? We have a snapshot, have that compressed, and once again, keep that for forensics information. Let's see what my man Larry's talking about. For us in affairs, the responsibility is primarily given to us on facts on the business side. Right, Coop. Yeah, 100%. That's true. They didn't have Coop on there. I usually put business continuity. If you look inside, which you are correct, inside business continuity, Coop is inside business continuity of operations. But you are correct. That's a little more detail. Yeah, it is. It is. It's weird. So it's important to be knowledgeable of the technology functions, ensure our business plan are agreeable during incident response function. Yeah, and the what I try to do is prove that out when we do our incident response tests yearly. So we're gonna do different tests and talk about, okay, this happened, and this is how we would get our data up, or this happened, how much data we would lose, right? So to kind of drill that home. So I try to marry those two up when we do our incident response exercise. That's why I got to be here getting my lunch. I don't know about the goat, but I appreciate that. Yeah, because part of that, and that's really GRC's perspective, or a lot of smaller companies don't have a GRC. IT, information security in the business, explaining to them what those are from a business perspective is how much data you're going to lose. And we're going to talk about some KPIs and KRs coming up to kind of help them see that. Once again, how much data they're going to lose, how long it's going to take them up. And the big cost is the cost of that. If you tell people, oh, we can lose data, okay, that's going to cost us $200,000 a year. We don't want to do that, right? So trying to give them the realistic and put it with the cost. And once again, those different DR strategies. Once again, from the backup copy, talking about getting our EC2 and our different instances, getting those copied, disaster recovery service, getting those Linux boxes and Windows boxes and SQL Server boxes copied over to your disaster recovery site, and this is your recovery account. If you need to build it into your once again your other region to bring that information up. That's why again I like to do the pilot. I'm already copying it over there. It's already over there. We keep it in sync, so I don't have to manually copy it or file it back. It's already over there. So that's kind of why I like those different DR strategies and not do the backup and recovery. Yeah, I kind of pull this up. If you look at the top, this is Azure, and it's failing over to AWS, right? And we were just looking at the DR site. So to the left is the Azure. You see it over there, the Azure Virtual Network. It's got their VPN gateway, and at the bottom is their VM1, which is similar to our EC2. So over there, it shows you how they're copying it to AWS. And from that AWS area subnets in the recovery region, like we were just looking at. So whatever those, if those are Windows boxes in the recovery area, we would bring Windows boxes up and once again fell over to a whole different cloud, right? This is kind of touching the multi-cloud. And this is something we're hoping to do in 2026, do more multi-cloud exercises. Because I think in the future, most large companies are going to have multi-cloud. I think a lot of development teams like AWS, but from an infrastructure that Active Directory, AFDS, Teams type corporate information, they love Azure, and Microsoft dominates in that. So I think in the future, you do multi-cloud, and what cloud has the best services for that particular division is what they're going to use. We were talking about some of this MTD, and this kind of what the business when you interview them. MTD, less than 10 minutes. MTA, less than 15 minutes. MTR, less than 60 minutes. Customize it. Shift traffic to a healthy region, less than 30 minutes. Unresolved DNS queries, mitigation, you got 2%. Right. In the next slide, we're going to break down what that MTD, MTA, and MTR. But this is what you're going to ask your users, and this is what they're going to tell you they want from business perspective. But then you got to say, okay, we're doing federal work. The IRS says, or FBI says, or Health and Hospital for says, right? So then too, sometimes the state says something different. But what are your requirements to your time to bring stuff up, and how much time do you have? Here's some of the metrics from the KPI perspective. MTD, mean time to detect. So if it doesn't have to be a cybersecurity incident. It could be AWS is down. How long does it take you to detect that they're down, and what do you do? Right, and see, target the best practices, the last column. Lower the better. Aim for less than 10 minutes in a mature organization. MTA, mean time to acknowledge. The average time between detection and when someone acknowledges. So if we're working for the IRS, they want to know within 24 hours if you have a problem, right? But you can have SLAs with clients. They want to know within 4 hours that you have a problem, right? Because your problem could be causing them to get malware, or if they're using your service, that could be causing their customers problems. So they want to be able to let their customers know that they're on top of it, right? So what is time? That mean time to acknowledge. Mean time to resolve and recover. Under 60 minutes for high impact production area, depending on the SLA, service level agreement, ATO, authority to operate level, right? So what's in those documentations? And inside those documentations are really requirements that you as a GRC person has to give to your development team, your infrastructure team, your programming staff, right? These are the times we need to be up, right? Infrastructure teams will configure what we were just looking at. Is it a pilot? Is it a warm? Is it active, right? Can we just do it from a restore, right? Those requirements helps you come up with those things. Let me drop the link down. So if anybody wants to come up, no pressure. No pressure. PBL is super nice. But those are kind of metrics you as a GRC person, we want to keep track of. And I think inside the Fed, if you have an incident, even though if it doesn't amount to incidents, they want you to keep track of it. We went down because the database filled up, right? So how long did it take you to detect it? How long did it take you to acknowledge it? And once again, how long did it take you to resolve and recover? Right. Hopefully, if you mature, you got not schisms, but you got different monitoring tools on your server, so you should hopefully never run out of disk space, right? So there's certain things in there. If you got programming, they have things, messages calling between different APIs. If a call between an API takes 2 or 3 minutes, something's wrong on that other API. So are you tracking that? Are you logging that? Do you have things to automatically say, okay, that took 3 minutes. That's above our SLA. Let's send security teams email. Let's send the GRC team staff, and let's send the programming manager staff. Why is this API taking 3 minutes? But that's the maturity of your observation. Observability is real big in the cloud. So what are you observing? Right. And as you get more mature, you just have those automatically built in. Okay, this API is taking longer. This EC2 is taking too long to spin up. Right. So, and you logging in AWS, you got CloudWatch and CloudTrail. So you logging all these different events. And on those different events, you have query tools, SNS, automatically email, looking for those particular times. Once again, comparing them to SLAs to figure out if you need to trigger something off. And if you look at a lot of vendors, they give you those packages for you. A lot of times, Splunk, when you get Splunk, they got a lot of KPIs automatically built up. If you're using Azure and AWS, they already has those hooked up into CloudWatch, CloudTrail, flowing down a Splunk. Once again, it's looking for those dashboards that you want to give certain divisions. Like the security team is going to be looking at something. The program manager is going to be looking at API calls, database calls, slow queries in the background. Then GRC is going to be looking like, okay, this is for a HIPAA and high trust, but somebody took out some encryption, so now it's not compliant. So once again, what metrics and KPIs are you looking at from that particular level so you can get notified? Once again, mean time to acknowledge, and also how long did it take you to resolve. The cool thing is once you get mature enough, if somebody takes something off and it's not approved, AWS config it automatically put it on, right? So you can have it automatically fix findings if you like. I don't usually do that much because they could be having a production problem. They took it off for a reason, right? So I don't want to hard code put it back. Usually, what I do if somebody takes something off, instead of me automatically putting it back, I just automatically send out the emails, right? The PBO gonna come and see you. Why is the encryption FIPS 140-3 off? We're in IRS violation, right? I'm gonna snitch on you to the CISO, right? So that's kind of how I handle it. But once again, depending on your level of maturity, you might automatically put those security requirements back on because you deem them to be Cat 1, non-negotiable. So it really does pay to learn more about the cloud and not go crazy about AI. I think they go together, to be honest, Xavier, because for AI to take effect, data engineering and the cloud team, you have to get the data to the AI engineers so they can put it in their models. The data is just not going to magically get there, right? So I think AI is definitely the number one thing now, but AI with no data is nothing, right? If it doesn't have the data to go through and learn, and the data has to be taken through and synthesized so it looks the same. I might be getting data out of Oracle, SQL Server. I might be pulling it out of clicks from a web server, but I have to put it in a format so the AI can be trained on it, right? So I think a lot of people miss that out. So all of that, somebody from the cloud has to get the data to the AI, right? So it can train and you can put it, in there, right? And two, they call it data engineering. You don't want to have a data swap, meaning I got so much information over there, but it's not categorized, it's not secure, it's not where people can find it so they can train on it. So I think that's kind of what a lot of people are missing, Xavier. Once again, data engineering and part of the data infrastructure, you have to get it to the AI so you can train on it. I know in the movies, it looks like the AI just goes out on the networks and find data. That would be a security problem, by the way, but it doesn't work like that. You have to get it to the AI engineers so they can train it. Yeah, I think DevOps, do a little research. A lot of people think the AI learning is going to make DevOps less needed. I was actually looking at that myself too, on the DevOps. I've done DevOps for years. It wasn't called DevOps when I did it, but DevOps is in there. Data engineer is in there. But once again, you got to get the data to the AI to train it. It doesn't just go out there and find data and magically start training on it, right? And that's how data get poisoned. If you giving bad data to your AI, it's not going to be able to train properly. So what's your good data? Are we cleansing it? A lot of times, once again, I did data warehousing for 10 years. You got to cleanse it and transform it, right? One database might have state as a number. One database might be 2 digits. One database might have it spelled out. So realistically, you want to get there and transform it so it's all symmetrical. Once again, making it easier for the AI to train on. Once again, I dropped the link if anybody want to come up. No pressure, no pressure. Let's see what my man Harish said. Does Runbooks account for cloud products? So for oh no, yeah. If you look inside AWS, yeah, Runbooks are definitely needed. Once again, those are mature companies. When I worked at the bigger companies, we have Runbooks for incident response. So if you think a server has a virus or a nation state on it, run the runbook. It's going to take that EC2, move it to a different subnet. It's going to flush the memory to get the open files, open how much memory was on there, getting it ready for the red team and the DFIR people to come in. Those were definitely out of runbooks. And from a GRC perspective, part of the runbook was taking our infrastructure, scanning it for compliance. That'd be IRS compliance or DOD. All that stuff was in runbooks because you don't want to do it manually. Like we would run AWS config, would tell you the percentage of the environment. It tells you if it's Cat 1 or 2. Get those lined up in Power BI. Get those out to the development teams because those findings could be a Cat 1. The development teams need to fix those. But all those were done by runbooks. And you're right, I don't see runbooks except for very mature companies. I think they have runbooks. They just doing them out of where they have these steps that they just run manually, right? They're not officially runbooks, but they do have procedures in these departments. They just don't have them fully automated. So I think that's kind of what I see. I call that a poor man runbook, right? Because it's not automated. So I don't think it took that long. I think they found it within 4 or 5 hours. The reason why the resolutions take so long is they're a global company, man. They're 33% of the internet. And their their infrastructure is super complicated. For me, they got it fixed within 12 hours. I think they found it within 2. I think they were putting out emails within 4 hours of their client. So for me, Ty, I don't, for the size and complexity and the size of their customers, I didn't think that was long. Once again, though, people have different perspectives. When you have 30% of the corporate clients on the whole planet, I didn't think that was. And 2 is they usually have something happen every 3 years. So for the savings, the amount of scale you get from AWS, and we're talking about major companies over there, man. We talk about Netflix running their global company on that. So for me, I didn't think that was that long. But once again, everybody has their different perspective. Once again, for that level of complexity, that level of user base that they have, and the sheer because I've been on the other side of that. The sheer panic you get when half the globe goes down. So now I'm giving them a little grace, Ty. Chime in on that. I didn't think it was that bad. Once again, I've been doing this a long time, so I might be giving them too much grace. When you running your own data center at the breadth of that and the scale of that, I think it was 12, 15 hours. They have most of their customers kind of flowing back after 4 hours. I think, for me, I think that's reasonable. But once again, I'm an AWS fanboy. I wish that, but I'm busy trying to earn. I understand that, Jim. Get the money, Jim. Get the money. It's all good. I appreciate everybody for hitting me up with the lunch and learn today. Just trying to make it grow it, make it happen. If you want me to look up something specifically, just let me know. The scary about some of the data industry is that they can. I had some. I don't think that's true, Xavier. The reason why, the only reason why I've done that at DOD, I've done that at Fortune 500 insurance company. Every time I needed the formula for some crazy mathematics, the experts gave them to me. Now I took calculus 3. I could take the area of a tornado, never, because if the business has that much value or something they want me to do, they're going to give me the formula. Anything else when we talk about moving data or querying data, that's SQL statements or some Python or some Java program. But if there's anything mathematical from a company standpoint, we used to talk about calculating death. I used to work with actuaries. They always gave me the formula. I've never came up with those formulas. Now I do have a high mathematical background, so I'm comfortable when I see it. Or sometimes if I saw something, I'll be like, "This is this the formula you want me to use?" I go, "No, that's not the correct formula." So now I've never came up with anything like that for me, Xavier. Maybe other people have, but like I said, I programmed for 10 years. Anytime I needed a complicated formula that was business related, I got it from them. Oh, facts, facts. Oh yeah, you're gonna see stuff because I'm sure y'all the reserves, because two people don't realize this. Like anything, we talked about business impact analysis. That part of that business when you're AWS is what's customers paying you the most money and what's customers are most important. Those are going to be your big government companies that's going to get their questions answered first. The Amazon know what customers pay what, so they're going to get the most, I would say, help or service to get their stuff resolved. Right. That's why you do. When I was at the state, we used to do a business impact analysis by agency, and I was hurt because I thought Department of Revenue we collect 34 billion for the state of Indiana. We was on page 3. I'm like, dude, we collect all the money. Like, dude, we got first responders, we got National Guard, all these people in front of you. I was like, oh, all right. So AWS is ranking their customers. So, but I get what you said, especially the reserve. Y'all dealing with big money, so your downtime, like we talked about, your MTD and MTA, you want to be small, right? Because you're unique and you're at the top of the food chain, right? Because you're with the reserve. So that's a different level, right? And me being a business person, we talked about impact analysis. Part of that is your business function, and if you got clients, what customers are most important to your business. And for AWS, you can't have your government clients going down, right? So I'm sure they get special attention. That's something I don't do very much of it. I have to think. I People invite me to their studies. I just don't usually do that. Any open forum discussion plan. I might think about that now that you do it. I might talk more about industry trends. We've been talking more about compliance engineering and what that looks like in the future for that part. So I might talk about that. So um, I'm usually usually in open forums discussing those plans. I usually don't lead them though. So let me think about that, Jim. That's actually an excellent question. So let's hit something real quick. But once again, that would be these would be your KPIs, KPR, MTD shows monitoring effectiveness, MTA shows alerts and on-call responsiveness, MTR shows technical and process efficiency. This is what we would put inside of our Power BI or our quick site if we're doing panels and stuff inside AWS. So a lot of people do them in Power BI. Once again, on site, that's it. So you just dump those data in Power BI. And once again, show your MTD, mean time to detect, mean time to acknowledge, and mean time to resolve. Then as you go through and you have incidents, these are the things you need to keep tracking so you can get metrics so to run them up the chain. So my man Larry said. Facts, facts, facts. But I don't know, man. If you the Federal Reserve, if you there's some big agencies. If you DOD, right, or if you Navy, because remember they did a. If you look, I think 4 years ago they did a $9 billion cloud RFP. So people like the Navy, Federal Reserve, Once again, DoD, different agencies could send their work to different cloud vendors, and those different cloud vendors, once again, RP is request for a proposal. They would tell how they best would do it. But there was $9 billion bid out for that. So to get that $9 billion, like I think them government clients went up there. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But yeah. Government gets a lot of pull on that, man, because I used to tell people tax money is infinite. That government is infinite. Keep dropping your questions in there. I'm trying to see if I can find that. I think what was that? I think it was 9 billion. 9 billion. If I can find that. There it is. That's 2022. There it is. Make that a little bigger. Once again, drop your questions in the chat. Just getting our lunch and learn on. This was 2022. Can I share this new? I appreciate you, Jim R. Let's see. Xavier says my take is interesting. Oh, that AI and ME is the truth on that. He do it for real. So I'll probably get him on the channel interviewing. But yeah, that data engineering. But I do more data engineering. He's really in the AI, right? So my job will be get to the data to him. Then he would do his AI, and that's the one I thought was getting into the mathematics of it. Yeah, but remember, data engineering. I'm getting the data to AI and ME, aka engineering cannabis, but that's what like his side of the math is different. Me getting the data there and getting it ready for him to do the AI engineering. So I think those are separate, right? You got data engineering, getting the data to it. Then you have data analytics, right? You're trying to find insight into your data. Then AI is to train it to do other things, right? So you got data engineering, data analysts, data science. Then you have the AI people, right? And I think AI split up into some other things too inside there, Xavier. But double check me on that, man. Double check me. Double check me. But that's kind of my thoughts on it. Real quick, I was talking about the bid. Oh, did I pick the wrong one? I picked the wrong one. Let me stop sharing. Let me reshare. Here it is. This is the one that the government put out. Let's see if we can see it. Yep, there it is. That was 2022. AWS, Google, Microsoft, and Oracle land $9 billion. I got to put the emphasis on there. The 9 billion multi-word DOD. So has been selected for a potential $9 billion by the Department of Defense. The Joint Chiefs, long story short, is they want to bid, and now each agency can bid on what services they want to do and what cloud vendor they want to do that particular work. But that's $9 billion cloud work, right? So depending on who the agency wants to go with, shout out to Fed or Navy, they could pick between AWS, Google, Microsoft. I was surprised Oracle slid in there and won. Shout out to Oracle. Get some of that. I need to do research to see how much each vendor won, but I always thought that was interesting. Something I never got. Like, man. So shout out to Larry. The government's in there because they spending $9 billion. Oh, we even bend the knee to the facts outside national security. Facts. Amazon, right? Yep, 100% on that. You are correct. But once again, that government wrote the $9 billion check out there. So if you had a cloud vendor, you only need a piece of that. You don't need to win it all. Just get a couple big government services to pick: AWS, Google, Microsoft, and Oracle. Right. So they knocked out everybody. Right. So if you Salesforce, you're not in there. Right. So, but once again, this is the big dogs. I always tell people, got in the cloud, pick a vendor, pick one of these, and you'll be all right. Right. Because they are landing part of the $9 billion that you're trying to get to. Once again, but double check with me. Double check me though, Xavier. person with that would be AI and ME. And two, of course, you can always Google and dig into. I did data engineering. Once again, my job was to get the data to the analytics guy, to the AI engineer. So I wasn't enough math. And if they wanted me to do something, I got this data from this division. I need you to calculate this and summarize it to make it easier for the search. All right, what's the formula? What goes to what and how you want me to calculate, right? Then they call it transform ETL, right? So part of that ETL transform and load. So what do you want me to transform those columns into, aka the math, before I send it over once again to the analyst or the AI engineer so they can do their part. Now I feel you. I feel you. So that's kind of my take on it. Like I said, I've been on the. It was called data warehousing, but that's kind of morphed into data engineer. Once again, I've always got anytime I need a complicated formula before I sent it over to a particular business unit or a particular analyst or AI engineer, they would tell me how to calculate it and what they want me to put it in. We call it roll up, or they have slow moving dimensions in time and roll back. But once again, they would give you those formulas for those particular calculations. Once again, drop any questions in there. We're gonna get to them. Hope everybody has a nice weekend. Make it happen. Let's see. This new setup is wearing me out. Let's see. Yep. Let's see. Let's hit some real quick. So the would be that would be the pilot project. All right. We got you see the active over there. We have our passive or our failover region. We don't have anything spun up, but if traffic starts going over there, it would automatically spin up. Do you still have a YouTube channel? Me? Who's that question goes to? Is that what? Xavier, who's that question? Does he still? Oh, I don't know. Does he? I don't know, to be honest. I thought he did, but I don't think he published. I don't know that question, to be honest. I don't know that question. I thought he was because he changed his name to AI and ME, but I don't know if he's producing videos. We were kind of talking about that. That's a hard game to be in. I think it was wearing him out. Your warm standby, right? You see in our you got our active, then our failover. We got a couple EC2s spun up from your front end and back end, right? So it'll start picking up and calculating much quicker. We got our replication database over there. We want to have our active. We have full on both sides, ready to pick up data. I don't know that, Xavier, now that you answer that. I haven't seen him produce any videos. YouTube is a cruel game, man. You could be producing videos and just not get many views, and it is what it is. That's all I had today. Once again, I'll drop the link if anybody want to come up. I'll hang out a little longer if anybody has any more questions. But once again, from a NIST standpoint, you got to have your COOP and DR sites, DR plans. Usually we test those annually. Then two, once again, where they're at. Once again, from the AWS, the US East 1 went down. It seemed like you should have been having something set up to fill over to a different region. There was a lot of companies seem to struggle with that DR setup. Okay. What is his name now? I think I saw him on because Black Ice changed his name to Elevate to the Unknown. So I seen him on that channel. I think you're right. Because Wade changed his name to Elevate the Unknown. I appreciate you. Once again, drop any questions you have. We're going to wrap it on up. I'm going to try to make this a steady time for lunch and learns on Friday. See to make that happen. Once again, you can find me. I appreciate everybody for joining me. Get me back on here in the bottom. Casual Economist, you know his new name? I appreciate you, Jeffrey Johnson. If you have some specific you want me to look at, so I usually do kind of little more NIST 800. Usually my Fridays, which kind of is it as third-party assessments. A lot of times, not most of the times when I do third-party assessment, the question I have to a vendor is, what's your DR strategy? Right? Are we passive, warm, pilot? And once again, what's the SLA? Are you going to be down 4 hours, 8 hours? And two is, if you're down, what's our credit? if my company can't make money as service and you breaking my SLA, what's my credit? Right? So then a lot of people start pushing back when you start asking those questions. But 2 hours asking what's the DR? Once again, RTO, return on operations, RPO. How much data you're going to lose while you're down? Switching from your active to your passive, and automatically spinning up a read replica and make it primary so you can write. What's going on? What's going on? We have national exercises for our agency once a year. Does the state do any statewide exercises? Yeah, we're NIST. So when I was there, we did them annually. The cool thing though is a lot of times is Department of Homeland will come out and check each state agency, because from the Department of Homeland, they worried about it from a nation state. So if a lot of states are getting attacked, they want to know. And they want to know what order you're going to bring up different services in your state, because they have their business impact analysis for different state agencies, like your National Guard, state police, if you have a flood, that type of thing from the state. So I thought that was interesting. Now, I think I'm going to hang out for a little bit, Casual Economist. I'm kind of in for the long haul. I'm in for the long haul. I've been here for about 5 years, so I don't think I'm going anywhere. So yeah, Larry, we do annually from this standpoint. Then once again, Department of Homeland will come out. I'm trying to see if I can track him down and interview him, which they're probably not working right now. So, but they would check the order of the agency, because first responders needs to come up, then funding, then hospitals, right? So Department of Homeland wants to check what order you bring your stuff up from a state perspective. I was included a couple of those exercises, and I thought it was super interesting. Okay. Okay, Xavier, I appreciate it. So you see, he has it out there. I need to go out there and ping him and try to get him set up for an interview in 2026. So a lot of people wanted me to interview people. I just got no views when I interview people, but the people that saw my interviews really liked them. So I'll probably get that interview game back up. MJ Cannabis, cool. I don't know if the cannabis was scaring people and it changed it up to AI and ME. So I don't know. But companies and vendors, they get interesting sometimes. Excuse me. Once again, I'm out. Everybody have a great weekend. I'm easily found. Just ping me. I need to do a better job about checking my email. No, there it is. And I think shout out to NIST. I think NIST and CISA was really working on that. From an IRS, Fed, and state perspective, Department of Homeland, because we did a huge tabletop exercise inside an auditorium that went super well, and there was the Department of Homeland was in there taking notes on it. So I thought that was interesting. I've done some kind of big ones with like 30 or 40 people. We probably had 100 people in there. I didn't run it, but I was in there. But I thought that was interesting. I appreciate it, Xavier, on the sub supporting him. I'll find him. I'm gonna need to track him down. Nah, facts. I'm with you on that. Even for me, that's great info because my AI is that's something I'm really trying to pick up in 2026. AWS has a couple machine learning and AI low level certifications. I probably get those. That's kind of how I track if I'm learning properly. So yeah, I definitely need to get a little better on the AI myself. I'm a little light in that area. Like again, I'm decent at the data engineering, getting the data there, but once you talking about training it, and I'm a little light on that. So um, once again, everybody have a happy Friday. Everybody have a great weekend. I'm out. Everybody have once again have a good weekend. I'm out. You see me on these